Welcome to Momentum Mode. My name is Mike Shannon, and in this episode, I'll be joined by my co-host, Corey Farragle, as we welcome Eric Mills. Eric is one of the leading minds in everything AI and large language models. He's a longtime engineer, graduate of Y Combinator, and he's the organizer and founder of Chicago's premier founder collective called Density. Now, before we get into everything from growth hacking methods to the latest in AI inherent and native companies, I want to recognize and thank our sponsor, Kilpatrick, Townsend & Stockton, an innovation-focused law firm that both Corey and I have worked with for over a decade. I also want to recognize Corey's venture capital firm, Imperium Ventures, and my own company, Improve. We provide AI for financial advisors. Well, let's get into it. Welcome back to Momentum Mode. I'm Mike. Corey. And today we've got Eric Mills as our special guest. We're taking a walk down early stage startup lane. A little context on Eric Mills, wears multiple hats. He's right now leader of what is the premier founder collective in Chicago called Density. He's been a multi-time early stage startup engineer, deep expertise on AI. And in particular, we wanted to go into a few AI, not necessarily model of the day, but some AI native company building strategies, tactics, in part because Corey's fund has...
So Imperium Ventures, we look for AI first companies. Like, we really have to think hard if we're going to invest in someone that isn't an AI centric in not just in the solution they're providing, but how they're building their product, right? Because it changes the whole cost structure.
Yeah. So, all right, Eric, let me kick it off. You're also a Y Combinator grad. So
I am, yeah.
You are sort of centerpiece, I would say, at the moment of the Chicago startup community. You also know what happens in the Valley. On this point of, this AI native company building era that we're in, what are you seeing out there? There's a lot of talk on everything. What's legit? What's not? What's a wrapper? What's substantial? So what are your, opening thoughts? All right, here's the state of company building in this era.
Yeah. I would say I've been working through it a lot too, just on my own and with other people, especially in Density. We've been figuring out what does it even mean to be.
Can I have a second explain Density for those that know what a founder collective is? What is Density?
It's, the simple thing is just a bunch of second time founders, exited founders, very promising people who are just building companies and want to work together and be in person.
Got it.
It's perfect. Tired of working from home and want to build together.
It's enough Zoom for me.
Yes, exactly.
And why the name Density, actually? Because that's interesting.
Density was just the idea of getting the right amount of people, all the smartest people that we can find in Chicago and put them all in one room.
Okay.
Basically. So
love it.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I remember you said to me a text, hey, doesn't it suck building your startup alone? Oh, yeah, that's a good thesis for an organization. And Density has grown over the last year.
All right. So what you're seeing around Density and the AI,
Yeah. So, a lot of people, it's the way you're building stuff is super important. So we've been using things like Cursor, Windsurf, all these things.
Explain what those are.
So those are AI code editors.
Okay.
There'll be agents for code editing and building applications or editing files, building features as you request them.
And we're going to go unpack on everything. Agents, unpack that.
Oh boy. Agents are, I would describe it as very complex workflows. You're trying to box into a black box that would go and solve those problems. Those are typically not linear problems. They have many paths that they would take to go solve that problem.
Right.
Whether there's an edge case for a certain thing, the AI might be able to handle it, but might not.
Right.
It might just totally miss it, or it might do it wrong. And
right.
Those are the things that we deal with when people build agents.
So an agent is a thing carrying out a specific task, and part of AI is you have different agents doing different things, and then you learn how they connect together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can layer on top of that is agents orchestrate other agents.
Well, now there's an orchestration. We have to get the acronym for the new standard for AI agent orchestration.
Microsoft.
Yes.
It's agent to agent framework.
Actually, there's a couple of them out there, but anyway, yeah. So, all right. So when you say AI first company, what does it mean to you?
And AI native and stuff in general. I actually, this is somewhat counterintuitive, but I see it as a mindset actually for how people are operating and working as both founders and then employees.
Okay.
And it's completely changed the way we operate and the way we work through problems and solve problems very quickly.
Yep.
To me, that's the core of what matters, is that people are changing how they're working.
So what might a person with old mindset be doing, like literally sitting at their desk doing? What might a person with new mindset not be doing or doing differently?
Yeah. So some of it might be like, the old hat stuff is like people try to delegate things out to other people in the organization and wait a long timeline to get proper answers back. Those people underneath are trying to like go look at data, things of that nature. Look at, talk to customers and all those types of things. In the newer world, to me, it's like people are solving problems through working with AI in conjunction, and then hooking that into the system, the records of knowledge within the organizations, within the companies, and using that to basically iterate very quickly.
Yeah.
You get better outcomes by iterating very quickly on anything.
And meaning letting the AI continue to change. Yeah. We use reps, right? Getting more reps, more repetition.
Yeah. And even the more manual version of that is just, I get to ask, like I can build an entire document, a one pager, for example, for whatever reason. I can generate once and review it from a high level and say, oh, this is way off. Right. And the iteration cycle for that was 2 minutes.
Right.
Versus 3 days talking to another person and delegating those tasks out.
Let me ask you this interesting question. Now, you wouldn't do dressing up. I think it's Larry. Wait till you hear dressing before you ask. Oh, it's awesome. Okay, keep the popcorn out. Let's say you were, and you wouldn't, I think, do this because you're very early stage. But if you walked into, an old hat, as you called it, company, and they said, "All right, Eric Mills, engineering expertise, come on in here and assess how we get to new mindset." What questions, what departments would you be looking at and digging into?
Yeah. It's interesting. Good at that.
I told you. I wouldn't do it.
Well, I would.
Fascinating.
If you did, that's the interesting part.
Like, here's the thing. Yeah, I would set up tools that help me collect that information. Like you could if you have like full access to a company, right?
Yeah.
You could build in like a framework of like agents or whatever.
Sure.
LLMs, sending out questions to people, collecting feedback, and then figuring out what follow-up questions to bring up, who to go talk to within the organization, and basically do a
the off-the-space interview, but it's done by what do you do here?
It's basically like what consultants would do to come in an organization to try and help fix arbitrary problems. You can have go in and see what's our color is it goes.
Exactly. So all right, well, it's fascinating process. What are you asking? Because the LLM's going to, so the process wise, as you're having it done, like, what do you
don't think about what to ask the LLM?
No, what are you asking the people? What do you want to know? Like, what are you looking at in the organization?
I would say it's not up to me to decide.
That's up to the AI.
Like you let it discover what the problems are within the organization.
Interesting.
Right? So you should try to give it high level objectives about like what we're trying to fix. We're trying to drive more revenue. We're trying to lower our costs within the organization or figure out what the customer pain points are at a high level.
So you're prompting it for the results you want and the outcomes you want. And you're letting it figure out the process. What to learn to get there.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
The beauty of AI will be eliminating a lot of the middle processes. The
middleman was milk. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the kind of thing. And we get the people who are the doers. And then the strategists that are the really the high level people in the organization that can drive things a lot faster.
How much?
Oh, go ahead.
You got it.
Well, so let me ask now from the founder side of that table. So almost every founder under your Density umbrella is doing something AI related, at least almost.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, it's the most exciting time and the most crowded time to build a company because everybody has access to the large language model that we're pulling from to build our solutions.
Yep.
One of the most common objections if a founder today walks into a VC office is they say, well, is this a wrapper or is it not? Help us understand. What does that mean? What's a wrapper? What's not? And how do you think about, do I have something, with a grip, or are 100 other people going to have the same thing tomorrow?
Yeah. I would say every software piece started from a simple database and an API, right? So those were just database wrappers before.
And can you define wrapper for.
Wrapper is just like, you're not doing a lot of work to like solve the problem.
Yeah.
Just letting the underlying tools like do as best they can.
So is this fair to say I could go to ChatGPT and ask it to do something? That's my direct access to ChatGPT. Maybe I created an interface and they're saying, well, you can just do that in ChatGPT. It's pretty much a wrapper.
Yeah, I mean, it has basic, it'll have whatever it was trained on, it'll have probably good enough, underlying tools to solve that problem.
Yep.
And like it had the knowledge to solve those problems, but will it be perfect? You don't know until you go and test it and evaluate it.
But a wrapper is you put something around someone else's software effectively, and they solved it, as opposed to you built your own AI behind the scenes. It's leveraging someone else's model.
Yes.
So I always think when we record this, I friends that are all in software, one in particular works in logistics. Hey, Mom. Works out in logistics, listens and so on. And okay, so he's doing logistics for a large company. They're shipping stuff to hotels and restaurants all over the place. Where's a company like that going to start when AI starts coming into it? Like, they're sending towels and supplies to the hotels, right? Like, does AI matter to them?
Of course. I mean, of course it does. Well, first of all, they were already doing RPA, robotic process automation.
Sure.
Was the very basic versions of what they're trying to solve before.
Right.
That was pretty heavy in logistics.
Sure.
So I would say that there's so much complexity in logistics, especially because there's many, many different stakeholders. There's quick operational things that need to be done, messages that need to be sent and communicated to certain individuals. And you need to like process things very quickly. So it's, again, that like middle processes that can be heavily optimized in that world.
So how much do you trust AI to develop software?
It depends on the day.
Okay. No, that's a good. Okay.
There's some days I would say, like, particularly in like front end world, like
on front end being the user interface.
Yeah, because you can see the end result very quickly. You can feedback pretty fast. It's been very good for helping me save a lot of time, and that's usually a lot of lines of code that are not particularly like
productive
or complicated, I would say.
Yeah.
And some of the back end things is where it matters, because that's where you protect your data. You worry about security the most and things of that nature. So there's been times where I've written entire like files, like 500 lines, 1,000 lines of code that's all AI, and I just like let it be. Right.
Yeah.
Then sometimes I go back and I'm like, this is not going to work, and it's actually slowing me down in other areas, and I completely strip it out and I write it by hand.
Okay.
Because it's just like there's some things that are too complex in certain scenarios.
There's a new phrase out there, vibe coding.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that for us?
Vibe coding is this idea of just like you're just talking to the AI and like letting it.
True, it's not voice talking, not type of talking. I'm saying go voice to text.
No, some people do.
Some people.
I haven't. I haven't found an environment where
where Skynet is real,
where I can just talk in a room alone. I don't know. I'm not feeling that yet.
All that density of founders around.
Yeah.
Okay, so whether you're typing, you're vibing, you're talking.
So yeah,
what's happening,
and not worrying too much about like what actually comes out of it.
Okay.
And that doesn't have to be production software, but you should probably avoid doing that entirely. I've done lots of reviewing with stuff, so I would say that's, we're not at entire like pure vibe coding where it's actually coming out with production software, but right now you still have to like review the code as it comes through, which I would consider not vibe coding, because then I'm like, just an editor.
Well, right. So I've got a friend who did some balance where he's prompting the AI to build code, build a test for the code, and then an auto test, but then take the results of the tests and feed it back into the model and trying to build a loop.
Yes.
So that he can go, are you seeing people doing that kind? Because at the end, he said he's not getting entire, packages, but he's getting a feature.
Yeah.
But it's a feature developer didn't work on that week, right?
Yeah.
You got more productivity by spending half a day setting all of it up.
Right.
And then by the end of the week, he's got usable code while he worked on something else. Is that a logical at this point? Should it's like most companies be thinking of doing it that way, or still?
I think the systems. I think you could build it like manually, and you can build that kind of stuff. I think the systems that will exist in the future will resemble that process, but be more robust in terms of like reliability and speed and being able to produce verifiably good code.
Yep.
For organizations. So I think we will get there. The LLMs are not quite there yet.
Got it
on that, but
So going back to my question of, what is just the wrapper or, substantial, like, okay, this should be a standalone product. Something I know you've put a lot of thought and research into is, knowledge graphs, knowledge bases. Like, what's kind of top of your mind right now of how, the context is provided to whatever, that agent or AI is doing. But, you're the deepest expert I know on knowledge graphs behind all of this. So what's the state of
First off, what's a knowledge graph?
Yeah.
Knowledge graph, I would say it's like a generalized term, I would say, but like, it's just about like your organization has a lot of internal information that exists.
Yeah.
From different departments. Some of that information overlaps. Topically, it's the same, but maybe different people, different customers have different, information that's tied to it and the products that they use within your organization. So knowledge graphs just help you piece things together and know what's what within an organization at any one time.
Yeah.
That's the simplest version of it.
So part of what's happening is there are heavily venture-backed companies that are saying, hey, we'll be the everything suite or team of agents for the enterprise, right? And so give us access to your data. Glean, right? This started as enterprise search. So now they have access to the data. That's great context.
Yeah.
Now we'll spin off your 200 agents for all these other things. Then there are point solution agents and we'll do this thing for you. Nobody knows what's going to win or evolve, but what's your thought on, the everything agent platform versus, okay, here's point solutions?
I think the generalized stuff tends to have a lot higher failure rate to actually work.
Yep.
So once you dig into an actual problem, and you realize this when you do startups in a particular vertical, is that there are so much underlying problems within that stuff that the AI will just completely miss if it's generalized, and it'll fail. It'll fail a lot of the times. But if you spend the time as a company, like as a startup, trying to like hone in on the specialized version, you will have a much more predictable success rate on the outcomes.
Okay, so we have a lot of people that do listen that are leaders, managers of the company, CEOs of companies. Like, what if you're a mid-level manager at a large company right now? What should you be doing knowing AI is coming in? Like, if you're giving them advice, what's the advice?
Oh wow, there's one piece that's might be confusing, but there's the idea of a stochastic mindset.
Okay,
which means that outcomes are not guaranteed for certain things.
Yeah,
in code, when we build software, it has exact functions. It will execute in the exact way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
With AI in general, everything is probabilities of outcomes being successful, and you can get that number to near zero, but oftentimes there's no total guarantees that it's always going to be zero.
Right.
And so flipping their mindset to being okay with the idea that things are the way it is with probabilities of outcomes, I think is very important. Yeah.
And what about so talk about getting data graphs together. Should they be, thinking about what data they have? Should they be looking for processes to optimize? Should they be evaluating software? If I get there where I'm like, okay, AI, it's going to be a little different, but what should I tangibly do?
Yeah. So I've been involved in and out of data infrastructure for the past 10 years. My first job out of college was working for Civis Analytics, which we were building data science platforms for organizations. It's always been over the past 5 years or so that people have been picking up on Databricks and Snowflake and trying to unify all their data into one place.
Yep.
That's good. That's been good.
But Databricks and Snowflake are effectively databases. Yeah. I know I'm way understanding it, and don't yell at me, everybody. I'm just trying to simplify places to store data. So
there are places to bring all your data from other disparate places and put it into one spot.
Yeah.
And that had data governance on top of it.
Yeah.
The thing is that a lot of these organizations have been convinced to go do this and have all the data in one place. And now what?
Yeah.
So they still haven't really returned an ROI, I think, on a lot of these data systems.
Yeah, I've actually was talking to a company the other day that's put a lot of data in Snowflake, and Snowflake's in there now pitching partners of theirs on how to use your Snowflake data, because they see this company going, why am I going to pay this big contract for Snowflake? What value am I getting out of that? Right. Yeah. So it's kind of I got it. Oh, we got to use it.
Exactly. So yeah. And that's called data activation. So figuring out what to do, what to do with the data. And that can resemble a lot of things. That could be, predicting the future about like customer churn with the data that you have, or detecting fraud better than you had before, in like a financial organization, or from those data warehouses, connect them into chatbots within the organization to help be able to just like discover things.
Yeah. How real is it to think, if I'm a mid-level manager, go to my friend, should he be looking at, a lot of processes in the logistics? Is it realistic that he could look at some of these processes and say, I could start automating with AI now? Is it ready for prime time? And he's a big, large, multi-$100 million company. So would those kind of companies, should they be looking at AI agents to take over tasks for the logistics team?
Particular tasks, yeah. It's a start, and you just you work your way through a lot of different things. Again, it relies on people switching their mindset to the source,
understanding that
probabilities and understanding
maybe was at the wrong place,
right? But they should also realize that the humans that they task for those things also have a failure rate to do those jobs half the time.
Well, that's the thing that kills me, like self-driving cars. I'm a big fan of Waymo, the self-driving taxi service, and it's in 3 cities now, going more, and everyone is getting upset. Oh, look, they crash. Have you seen the statistics of people driving cars from crashing? It's like, come on, of course they crash.
Yeah.
But the people do, worse. It's way worse, right? So it's very much like that, right?
Yeah.
Remember, people are fallible also.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Something on that note. So the topic of offshoring engineering operations has obviously been around forever. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, the thought was, well, it's way more cost effective, but, can be tough to manage. There's a lot of technical debt that builds. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you talked about offloading, an individual engineering's tasks to AI. Mm-hmm. If you were, scaling a company, would you be looking at it as, hey, offshoring, at least the buildup of the engineering operation is now more enabled through AI because I can, at least quality control better? Or do you look at, I don't even need to consider it anymore? Like, where's your mind?
It's a good question. I mean, it's usually just an extension of your engineering team half the time. Yeah. There's usually, like, from what I've experienced, like a lot more delegation that you have to do, and so a lot more micromanaging of those scenarios. Sometimes you find like stellar people that are in that group on the offshore side, but so I would say it's still just like a cost component that, like, if you want to have cheaper talent covering more things, I don't like to use offshore talent for critical application components and stuff, but
so what will be
changes a lot.
I can guarantee there's members of the audience that have 20, 40 engineers that are all US based, and they're asking this question. Corey, probably the portfolio asking this question. Wait a minute, should we be shrinking the cost on this by taking the non-critical elements of that offshore and supercharging it with AI? What are the non-critical? How do you think about that if you have an existing team?
Yeah, well, as we build software easier now, we're going to have more and more complexity. So like our applications and infrastructure is going to scale in size. And so there will be probably a lot more fringe products and services or internal tools that like you can task with the offshore talent. So I don't think it goes away.
So if I've got 40 US based engineers right now and I'm thinking about offshoring, how many do you think where do I roughly end up? Yeah, I know. But the question is, do you change that at all if you have an existing team, or do you say, hey, things are where they are, let's keep going, but they're just...
I think it depends where you want to be later. Like, are you trying to like scale up the company still a lot? I would say I'm trying to like scale up your company very, very quickly.
Yep.
Then like keep the talent pool that you have, and like I don't think you need to add a lot more people though.
But you should be able to get more productivity out of the people you have by adding AI. That's one of the things. I've had a couple of companies that are AI providers, right? So they've wrapped a large learning model, LLM, with their software, and they're selling now this automation agents to companies.
Yeah.
And they're nervous to say that they're going to save you money because they think everyone thinks they're going to fire people. Because, and what I'm telling you is your message should be, you're going to grow your business without adding more cost.
Yes.
Right. So more productivity out of people. Yeah. So you think AI is there. We should be able to get more productivity out of teams with the AI we have.
Certainly. Yeah.
So what do you think about existing software companies from the standpoint over the next 3 to 5 years? I've got this view that if you're a large software provider, I won't name one because I don't want to make an enemy. Let's say you're a large software, multi-billion-dollar software provider, and you've got literally tens of thousands of engineers around the globe.
Yep.
I actually think that might be one of the worst places to be. And the reason I say that is a competitor can come up using AI-driven engineering teams, develop in 2 years similar functionality with a cost base so much lower than yours. Yeah, they can just drop their price down and still be profitable. For sure. Right. So am I crazy, or is there a path? Is that
I think possible? I think it's true. I think a lot I mean, this is like counterintuitive, but I think a lot of industries will shrink in 100% size a lot. Yeah. Significantly. I think that certainly can be a problem in certain.
Has that come up in any due diligence on the venture side of, the TAM is this, but actually it might shrink to this? Or
it's a little different. It's actually what's your pricing model to ensure it doesn't shrink? I think there are some people that sell by seat.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm going to sell by seat, but I'm going to get a highly productive product, their seat isn't the best pricing model, right? You have to think about that. Or
and just to unpack what that might mean is if I'm selling software to a sales team or an engineering team that's supposed to be 50 people, you're saying, well, now their seats might be 40 or 25.
Don't price it ours 50. You got to price it differently, right?
Price to impact or something.
That's right. But in theory, you should be able to build it with AI where if you're going to call it, charge 100, you should be able to charge 50 now.
Yeah.
And still be highly profitable because your cost is a lot lower, right? So look at that a lot. So look at your price or your model. Look at what is the total available market, the TAM. But I think some of the TAMs stay up there. It's just how you get there is very different. It's going to be different tooling, different products sold. But I think there's just I think in 5 years, the mindset is going to be like right after the apps came out, right? Mm-hmm. 5 years after we had the apps on a phone, right? Forget the phone, but once we had an app store, 5 years later, everything was different. I think we're looking at that level of change. Yeah. But remember, we're only 15 years from that app store change, right? Like this is quick seismic change.
Yeah. So does that mean the venture folks are thinking less about top line revenue growth, more about profit, or that's
it's both, but it's expected that you should be able to drive profit on a lower top line revenue growth. Mm-hmm. So you should be able to be more profitable. And there was a big thesis in the venture world, buy a market, invest a ton, buy a market. Now it's like, I don't have to invest as much, but I should be able to dominate a market quickly if I move fast. Yep. So there's a measure your investment. I actually believe a lot of companies will not need to raise as much money as they did previously. Yeah. So what is the biggest mistake you're seeing people make with AI?
Oh, boy. What category, I would say.
Okay. What's the one that makes you go home and go, oh, can't believe I just saw that?
Oh, man, this is a tough question.
Okay, let me ask it differently. Is there a lot of mistakes people are making with AI? Or is it so new that it's really hard to make a mistake? It's all about experimenting.
Yeah, I think it's important to experiment a lot. But
are people underestimating or overestimating AI's capability?
I would say it's like on both directions.
Okay.
I like to just take the practical view that like understand its limits.
Yep.
And that when you realize the limits of it, you realize like what can you do that's like really, really strong.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, the mistake a lot of people are making is like they're trying to do like some very simple workflows.
Yep.
For now, which is great to like experiment with. I think there's going to be very interesting things that happen later.
Yeah.
For example, to go solve a single problem for an organization, you're making like, let's say you're trying to make a decision or a certain outcome or decide to partner with an X company, right?
Yeah.
That you can potentially like simulate out 1,000 times what that outcome could look like.
Yep.
With all the data that you have in the organization, you could say like, let's take all this data that we have about like all of our different customers, whatever. If we do this partnership, what happens?
Yeah.
So like predicting the future, I think will become a lot more interesting. With stuff.
All hedge funds are going, what?
Yeah.
More?
Well, they've probably already been.
Exactly.
For the sharp ones. But so I'd say that like, there's much more, there's like a layer 2 of like working with AI.
Yeah.
Where you start to get very creative with how you orchestrate things. And I think the mistake that people are making is they're not digging in deep enough.
So
for some of that,
you're on the board of a company, you're walking into a meeting. What are you asking management about AI?
I would say like how much are they educating people for now?
Okay.
Is one of the big things. So like
giving their customers or their internal employees.
Teams. Yeah.
I would say the internal team the most, because that'll disperse out to the other customers.
Market.
So I think it's really just like, what is possible for those employees? Like, what could they be doing on the software development side? It's obviously like these cursor type tools. Working with those in their everyday workflows, and then for everyone else, it's like working with ChatGPT and like working through different stuff or using specialized tools in their market.
So from kind of wrapping this up, wrap up the ground floor level, you've brought almost every fundamental metric that I can recall pitching to VCs into question of, what's that evolved from? Does the size of the TAM shrink in some degree? Do you price differently from seats to impact? How you build your engineering team, how you scale out your cost model, your profit breakdown. All of that is, you don't have the answer on it, neither do we. But on the whole, you're going in, as you are in your umbrella of Density founders, building a company. Is it a better or worse time to build a company now than 10 years ago?
I go back and forth every single day, basically. I think it is the best time, for sure. But like the crowding is difficult. What happens next? I have a bootstrap business that does AI text image generation, right?
Interesting.
Over the past 2 years since I'd started it, the image generation kept getting better and better over time.
Yeah.
I was building specialized things, like trying to do all these tricky things at the beginning to try and make the model work better or perform more consistently. As the new model updates came out, it became easier and easier for external people to like try and catch up to me. And that's like a big challenge. Even as a startup, like getting as agile as I could be, like one person and in contractors, right? Yep. Like that I can already get like competition that quickly. Yeah. And so that's like nerve wracking.
To me, that's a good argument for bootstrap if you can, because
you bootstrap meaning fund yourself. Don't go raise money for yourself.
Yeah. If when you started doing that, it was okay, we think, here's the barriers and here's the pricing points. And then you put, a bunch of capital on your back and had to underwrite that in some degree to a pricing point. Now, a year later, the second mover says, we're not going to have that the same degree of capital and we're going to price here. To me, that's the argument. Is I think it's the best time to build, but it's also the strongest argument for bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Always lean funding.
So I think like the base case though is I think it's stabilizing a little bit because there's only so good that the models need to be to solve a bunch of problems. Basically, like I would say 95% of the problems. Yeah. The very large, like as we improve like the language models, like to build like a monster LLM that can solve any problem ever kind of thing becomes like for a very small set of actual problems that need to be used. So
and one more bonus question. The Armageddon scenario for startups.
This is really only 5. Well, all right. The Armageddon scenario that only 5 companies win every space, meaning the large language model, builders. Yeah. Why does Armageddon, happen or not happen for the rest of startups?
Because there's still so many people and organizations being inefficient, I would say.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not going to happen. There's not going to be only 5 winners.
I would say it would be a very slow process just because of the way markets move. I would say. So it could be 15 years that it's like a slow decline, maybe. But that's
Ready Plays One. Yeah. There we go.
I think we hit it. This was great. Thanks, Eric Mills.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.